Hello, this is Christian of Firefly Dragon, and thank you for joining. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the new Legend of Zelda game, Sands of the Gerudo. Alright, so I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. I actually don't have any ties with Nintendo in any fashion, and Sands of the Gerudo is actually not the next Legend of Zelda game. It is actually a game that I'm designing as a hypothetical game for the Legend of Zelda universe. And so I'm actually starting my animation and game development degree in about a month. Super excited for that. And so I'm going to take the concepts I'm going to walk you through in these video series on Sands of the Gerudo, and I'm going to create an actual game for it. Now, I'll probably have to change the names and assets and all of that so that it becomes my own intellectual property. But I'm designing this game as a fan of the Legend of Zelda universe and as though it's going to be an entry for the Legend of Zelda universe. And I think comparing it to The Legend of Zelda implies a lot of the things that I want to be a core focus of the game, namely puzzle platforming, puzzle combat, and adventuring and collectathon, exploration and collectathon. So a lot of great things that implies, helps get you the idea of the game right off the bat, even if I eventually change the name and assets to be a bit more unique and different from Legend of Zelda. And so today I just want to walk you through a few of the different subjects I'm going to be covering for Sands of the Gerudo. Real fast, before I get right into it, I want to get into it, but I need you to subscribe and ring the bell. I'm excited to bring you the content for Sands of the Gerudo, as well as the other content I'm making, like Overwatch character designs, theories, and analysis, and other content spread out across anime and manga, other video games, and other American media. So a lot of stuff I am going to be creating for you. So subscribe, ring the bell, and let's get right into it. And so, Sands of the Gerudo. There are going to be a lot of things I'm going to be covering, and just for now, I want to let you know that I'm going to be referring to my notes. I don't want to bore you, so I've ordered a capture card, and in the future, me referring to my notes will usually have gameplay over it, so I'm not boring you while I look at the script instead of you. So I'm just going to catch up on the script real fast. I'm right there. And yeah, I'm creating a little bit of a makeshift index of the types of things I'm going to be covering for Sands of the Gerudo. And this series on Sands of the Gerudo is meant to be kind of like development of the game from concept to game being published. I hope that I can make that interesting for you. I think it's going to be really interesting, so I'm going to be happy to have you here with me. The original idea I had for the game is that I thought it would be cool if we could play as Zelda and as Ganondorf. Ganondorf is one of the coolest villains and bad guys from gaming history. He has depth and intelligence, and in Ocarina of Time, he actually had a very noble goal to provide for his people, the Gerudo. And so I wanted to be able to play as him so that we could explore him a lot more, explore things such as his combat and his identity and how he reacts to things. And so I also enjoy the idea of being able to play with a couple friends, like Triforce Heroes, have it be 1, 2, 3 players. I'm not sure if I want to implement the multiplayer like Triforce Heroes does. I'd have to play that more and figure that out. But I'm coming to a point in the development where I might take the multiplayer away. Now, I would love to have the multiplayer, but I want it to be an option, because if you have to find 2 other friends to play, you're never going to play the game. There's this really fun game called It Takes Two that came out recently. Love it. I'm lucky enough to have a couple to play with me, a couple people to play that with me, but I feel like it would be hard to consistently get one or two other people to play a game consistently when you end up wanting and having time to play the game. So multiplayer has to be optional. You have to be able to play it as single player. And I'm just not sure how I want to implement that. So I might revert it to a single player only. But I'd love to be able to keep it the multiplayer. And even if I keep it single player, I'm debating reverting it to just Link as the playable character, but I'd love to figure out Zelda and Ganondorf, and there's this other character, Rika, that I have a lot of great content. I really want to share the ideas of Rika with you, as well as Yujin, but those are probably going to be for more story and character-based videos. Let's see, what's the next point? So, the next thing I want to mention is that I would love to put this in use the Breath of the Wild engine for this game. I love the aesthetic and the mechanics and the climbing. That's all great. I definitely need to change the assets a bunch because I have a very different Hyrule planned. The biggest thing I'd change from Breath of the Wild, though, is I'd make the combat more forcing. Like, in Breath of the Wild, you can, let's say, Stalfos appear, you run away. There's a bokoblin on a horse with a bow. Run away because their aim sucks. You're never really forced into combat. The only time you're truly forced into combat to beat the game is Ganondorf and some of the beginning shrines. But you beat the shrines, you beat Ganondorf. You can run away from every other combat or not engage in any other combat. Now, if you want to complete the game, that is different, but I want my game to be if a random enemy spawns, it's something you have to actually deal with. You either have to kill it, you have to use resources or skill or the environment to run away. It's not just you have some stamina, you run away because the enemy is absolutely no threat if you walk 5 feet away. So, love Breath of the Wild. The combat, when you do engage in it, is great, but my biggest problem with the game is actually that you're not forced into combat, which really feels like an oversight to me. It feels like they're trying to let you or have you skip over most of the game. So that's the biggest thing I would change from Breath of the Wild, but most of it I would adore to use. Let me see. I've gone through wikis to search locations and go through every single item and collectible Link has ever had the opportunity to get, and to look into all of the different enemies Link has had to face. And I'm really excited to add these. Like, I have the slots for 32 items, as well as variants on those items, as well as collectibles. And if you want to know, the difference between item and collectible is a passive buff, and item is something you equip to use in this context. And so I have collectibles and items, and my list of enemies is currently about 50 long, and I'll probably take some of those off just so the game isn't too bloated and to put in some room for me to add my own bad guys. But I'm also planning on a pretty big Hyrule, so I think I'm going to have the availability to have a ton of enemies. Breath of the Wild criticized for having few enemies, and I'm trying to overcorrect, I think. But yeah, I have a bat or vampire tree, which is basically the keys the upgrade of that is the Vire, and the upgrade of that is the, I think it's pronounced Ackerman. I have the Choo Choos, and gosh, I was able to go way more in depth with the Choo Choos than I thought. I have normal, and then the color variants, and then the elemental variants, which are different from just color variants. I'm putting in a Choo Choo that's basically made out of oobleck, where if you like punch it really hard, it solidifies, but if you softly press into it, you you can go through it like a liquid. So I have like an oobleck Chew. I have cloud chews, mist chews, chew nests. A lot of I'll probably do a lot of videos on the chews in the near future, because I have the chew jar and chew pouch and potions you can make with the chew jellies and all these different types of chew chews. And they're one of my favorite enemies in the series because of Wind Waker. They have personality, and I've actually, in trying to create the Choo Choos, looked up Wind Waker Choo Choos, and some of those images are frightening. I don't get scared that easy. Guts, love it. The series Berserk with Guts, love it. I'm not unsettled by that, really. But some of these images of the Wind Waker Choo Choos are a little bit unsettling. So I absolutely love it. So lots of enemies. I'm looking into reworking or redesigning the Redeads, one of my favorite Legend of Zelda enemies ever, period. One of the favorite game enemies ever. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it unique from the other things while still holding true enough and doing the enemy justice. So I am hoping to include them. I'm not 100% sure I will yet. Let's see. Yes. One of the last notes I have is on dungeons. I currently have 7 main dungeons planned, like 7 story dungeons, and I plan on having these be like in the first Legends of Zelda game. Find a dungeon, you enter it, and you won't necessarily be able to complete it because you'll have to find the dungeon item, and sometimes the dungeon item may actually be to complete a different dungeon, a little bit like Mega Man, how you beat one boss and get the power-up that is strong against another boss. I might do that a little bit. And so I have 7 dungeons that you need to, and then I have the Spring of Power, of Wisdom, and of Courage as mini dungeons, a bunch of other mini dungeons, and mini puzzle areas that are like shrines from the Breath of the Wild, but sometimes even smaller. And I have a bunch of different combats. What I think they're going to be like, and I haven't gotten this far in God of War 4, but from what I can tell, I have areas that are going to be like the Valkyrie, I think they are. And they're just like overworld boss fights that you just can find in the overworld. I have them for Helmrox, Zola, which from the first Legend of Zelda game, those are the Zora-like creatures are the Zola. It's a L instead of an R, Zola. I have Zola and Helmarox and Shadow Links, and then I have Ganondorf-based ones, which are probably just going to be like spiritual encounters of like Dodongos and I don't know the names of the mini bosses. I haven't looked into the mini bosses yet, but you know, like the two-headed dragon, the big moss, you know, like some of the greatest mini bosses and bosses from throughout the series. And Ganondorf is just going to walk in there, fists blazing with magic, and beat him down. Slugfest. Because he's at the embodiment of the Triforce of Power. You know, he gets to slug it out. He's not just going to slug it out, though. He is going to be a warlock. So I love Ganondorf. I'm going to take a lot of care not to trash him. Love Link, love Zelda, love the Legend of Zelda series. Going to take a lot of care not to trash this. It's going to be a long development process, and whenever something interesting comes up, I'm going to just get you this update videos, you know, like, hey, I came up with this cool location, came up with this cool item, cool enemy, cool story point. And, you know, sometimes I'll be like, why can't I think of the word? But retcon videos, you know, like I'll have done let's say I did a story video, and then 2 months later I'm like, so I did this story video a little bit ago, but I actually realized there was some plot holes, or I thought it would flow better if I went with this story. So I'll also do a bunch of updating videos for retcons. Perfect. And that looks like everything I was going to cover for Sands of the Gerudo today. I understand if this wasn't the most interesting video. Like I said, I'm going to get that capture card. I'm going to get practice on creating these videos and expressing these ideas to let you know how cool they actually are. I've always thought of myself as a poor explainer, so I'm going to get better at that and make this more interesting for you guys. So go ahead, subscribe, ring the bell, like the video if you like it, and also share with your Legend of Zelda friends who love Legend of Zelda. And let's get excited for Sands of the Gerudo. A lot of great stuff to look into for this, and I'm going to keep you guys updated. I'm also going to, one of my next few videos is going to be a character design for Overwatch. His name is Amp, and he's electricity fun-based. He's going to be an off healer. I think he has a sweet design. Really excited to show you guys, and look forward to my other videos. And until next time, this is Christian of Firefly Dragon signing out.